moderator for this session. Thank you for all participants for coming to this session, and especially thank you for our distinguished speaker, Prof. Ahmad Fauzi from IPB. Before we begin, I would like to remind everyone this session is the first session. Today we will run at 8 p.m. 8 a.m. to 9:30. We have a package agenda, so I hope we can have a great time for get more information from our distinguished speaker, Prof. Ahmad Fauzi. Prof. Ahmad Fauzi is an expert in field of economics valuation on natural resource and environment, and we hope today we will get more learn from his insight, from his experiences, and also more information about the valuation economics. Prof. Fauzi also held an PhD in economics from Simon Fraser University of Canada and had over 80 publication indexes in Scopus and WOS. So currently, Prof. Ahmad Fauzi also chair of the graduate program in Faculty of Economics and Management, IPB University, being active in international project, and he also served many visiting professor in several universities in the world, include in Ghana, Vietnam, also Norway. Yeah. He also had many research and focus on resource environmental economics and valuation of natural resource economics. So before we dive into this lecture, I would like to encourage all participants to engage actively during this session. So your thoughts, your questions are very valuable, and we encourage you to share in this session. If you have any question, please feel free to type in the chat box, and in question and answer session, we will read your question to Prof. Fauzi, and he will address it. To make this session more engageful, I also will be awarding points to participants who actively participate throughout this lecture. So do not hesitate to ask question and share your opinion or insight from this lecture. Without further ado, I would like to invite Prof. Ahmad Fauzi to take the forum. Prof, the stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Barwin. Good morning, everyone. I think I don't know what time is in your region, probably very early morning in some areas. Anyway, my name is Ahmad Fauzi, and I'll be presenting Indonesian topic on environmental ecosystem services. Just to let you know that I'm in a very busy schedule right now in Yogyakarta, so I'll be speaking about 45 minutes, and then I'll give around 15 minutes to have Q&A. So I should be leaving by 8 o'clock Indonesian time. Sorry, 9 o'clock Indonesian time. By the time I have to leave for another events in the city. So let me give you a brief of this nice picture about environmental valuation. Let me start you about research by Jean and Quinn in 2013. once at a time in 2011, around 2010 or 2011, there was something happening in North America where salmon population in the western part of United States were dropping down in terms of production. People were wondering what happens in that salmon production. So they thought because the predators like bears and other predator are or playing a greater role in salmon population in terms of declining population. But along the way, they decided to reduce the bear population in effort to increase salmon population. But eventually, the salmon population getting down and down is not recovering from a declining population. So scientists were wondering what's happened to this ecosystem. Finally, they set up some cameras in the forest, try to find out what's going on in the ecosystem. So they found something surprising. Actually, the bear is not really totally acting as predator, but they're acting as engineers. So when they catch a salmon, they spread out the rest of the salmon bodies into the forest. And by the time, like 1 or 2 days, the salmon body decompose into bacteria, and then the nutrient come into the soil. By the time the raining season come in, and then the soils getting rich, and the nutrition actually sent to the river, and the river getting fertile, and eventually salmon population increase. So knowing that what happened in ecosystem, they call it bear is not really total predator, but is actually nature's engineers. Knowing that what happened in that ecosystem, the government decided to drop these salmon carcasses into the forest, yeah, as part of government to reproduce what the bear population were doing in the nature. So that was happened in terms of linking between economic and environment. Sometimes we don't know what's going on in the system. Sometimes we always think that one system like bear as total predator, but at the end, is not only total predator, but acting as engineers in terms of balancing ecosystem in the forest or in the nature. So that's what happened in 2013 in North America, as a lesson learned from everyone that ecosystem very complex, and services derived from ecosystem is quite vary, and the interaction between component, both flora and fauna, is quite mind-boggling. That's the bear we thought as a predator, but actually it's not really acting as a predator at all. So by doing this, um, the keyword for this topic this morning is about valuation of ecosystem services. So the keyword is about value and the services. What we mean by value is not only economic value in terms of financial, but in terms of value derived or what we call benefit derived from the services of natural resource. What are the services of natural resources? Everything from what we call tangible services into intangible services or consumptive services and non-consumptive services. Let's say, let's see this graph. If we take a look at ecosystem, what we know mostly on the first part of the graph, what we call provisioning services, we derive food from plant, for example, get wood to get our furniture and get some herbal medicine, and we harvest energy from the wind, for example, or the bioenergy. So all these services, what we call provisioning services, we can derive directly from the services of the ecosystem. We can consume it, we can use it directly. But the other two services, which is not intangible or which is not tangible, which is not directly consumed by people, but play a greater role in balancing ecosystem services. These are what we call regulating services and cultural services. What is regulating services? Everything derived from ecosystem services is not directly consumed by people, but we can use it indirectly, for example, for waste decomposition, for crop pollination. By the time, like say, the bee use their services as pollination, then we can derive harvest from bee pollination. The same thing for climate regulation. Ecosystem services play a greater role in climate regulating with benefit to other ecosystem as well and to the people. The second component, which is also intangible, is not directly consumed by people. This is what we call cultural services. For example, people in the forest area benefit from pure oxygen, tourism, personal growth, or spiritual or aesthetic. But sorry, among these three services, only the first part is transacted in a market. So once we get the wood, for example, you can buy in a market. Once you get the services for the food, we can buy it in the market. But the rest of the components are not transacted in the market. There's no market for regulating services. There's no market for cultural services. The only market that we can derive from the services is through other methods such as recreation, such as using what we call um, damage cost avoided. So if, for example, the climate change is happening to the city or the coastal city, then we have to pay some amount of money to prevent flooding. Then that's the cost of climate regulation. That's the cost of regulating services. The same time, if harvest is dropping, let's say wheat production are declining, then we know something is going on. For example, because of the pollination by the bees not working, then the cost of that production declining is a reflection of the cultural services value from the nature. So ecosystem services valuation try to monetize all these things all together. So it's not only reflecting in the market, but also derived by the people in terms of other benefit. So the importance of economic valuation is try to capture all these three components all together in terms of monetary valuation. Sorry, guys. So what is ecosystem service valuation? Is basically assessment of trying to convert everything in terms of monetary units. Yeah, because if you're talking about ecosystem units, ecosystem services unit is very complicated. Let's say we measure pH, for example. We don't know what the meaning of pH in terms of everyday's life. Turbidity or CO2 equivalent. So everything will be measured in different unit. But once we convert it into monetary units, then we have common denominators, and everyone knows that we're talking about the same thing. We're talking about money, we're talking about value in terms of ecosystem services, regardless of whatever unit they're using, either oxygen or turbidity or pollination or nutrition. We don't care about that unit, but when we convert it into a monetary unit, we're talking about the same denominator. We're talking also about non-market ecosystem benefit. The one we're talking about the rest of the three component, regulating and cultural services. Try to convert that into monetary for the benefit of human well-being and society. So the keyword of ecosystem services is trying to convert the services from the ecosystem into monetary unit, either dollar, rupiah, or any currency you're using, as long as we have common denominator, we understand that everything has value. Yeah, that's the point of ecosystem service valuation. How do we measure the value of ecosystem services? There are many things we can. Sorry, this is typo. We can use primary data. For example, if we buy water bottle in the market, then we can use market base. If we buy wood for our furniture, then we can also using market base. But again, because of climate change, our city get flooded, then we have to incur costs to avoid flooding, for example. That's what we call a cost avoided. In terms of getting services from the nature, from culture, like aesthetic or beauty or spiritual value, then we might have to visit some area and get benefit from clean water or clean air or nature beauty. This is what we call travel cost method or hedonic pricing. If you want to know everything about all non-market component, then we can ask people to value the ecosystem using survey. This is what we call contingent valuation. The name contingent refers to the context we are asking to the people in terms of survey we were doing. Or if something happened in ecosystem, for example, many activities to reclaim some area, or we have to restore some area to make it better ecosystem services. This is what we call habitat equivalency. Basically, try to balancing the damaged ecosystem with the new ecosystem, even though it's not one-to-one. At least we know some scale of restoration can be made to compensate the damaged ecosystem. If we don't have any information, then we can use what we call benefit transfer. Some people might have done some studies on ecosystem valuation, let's say in the Pacific or in North America or Europe or in any other areas or in any countries, any other ecosystem. Then we can borrow that values because we can transfer that value into our study to get some initial picture what is or what are the values of the ecosystem being studied. That's what we call benefit transfer. Basically, we borrow numbers, we borrow value, we borrow dollar per hectare per year from other study to be adopted, to be used in our study. This picture is much easier in terms of valuation method. Q is what the ecosystem services, the market component. So on the left side, healthy water for human being, for drinking or for any other resources. Ecosystem services provided Q, which is like spring water. But once that's water is harvested into the market, into the bottled water, then we will call X, which is commodity transacted into the market. So in order to value what happened to the spring water, if they degraded or if they lost spring water, then we can measure using what we call defensive expenditure or averting behavior in order to avoid the spring water not to be degraded or polluted or the spring water get lost. So this is what we call substitution method in terms of economics valuation. The second component, what we call complementary method, the Q is ecosystem and the X is what we call our costs being spent in order to enjoy the nature, in order to enjoy the beauty of the nature, in order to enjoy, for example, services derived from the ecosystem services. In terms of economic valuation, this value derived from tourism, we can deduce or we can invert from the costs being spent by people, to get to visit that area. That's why we call the travel cost method. Yeah, uh, the money we spend visiting, let's say, waterfalls, visiting the forest area, will be a reflection of our appreciation to the nature, which is our valuation to the nature, and is inverted by how much we're spending for traveling to that area. The third component, what we call a Q part of X, which is ecosystem services, is part of the market component. Um, this is the area where hedonic pricing comes in. When we're talking about property values, for example, if you buy properties in very quiet area, very scenery area, very panoramic area, it is much more expensive, very crowded area in slum area. That's why properties or housing in very scenery area, in very beautiful area, in very quiet area is much more expensive because they capture the services component from the nature is embedded into the property's value. It embedded into the housing price. That's why we call it hedonic pricing. Yeah, the price of ecosystem services is embedded into the property's value. The last component, this is what we call specifically focused on non-market data, non-market valuation. Let's say we're losing our biodiversity, how to value biodiversity. We set up hypothetical market, asking people if our biodiversity get lost, if our biodiversity, declining, how much are you willing to pay to restore that biodiversity? Some people say, I don't care. Some people say, I would willing to pay such and such. Then this is what they call contingent valuation or choice modeling. Yeah. So again, in a sense, these four diagram describing how we transform the ecosystem services into the economics component through various methods, either a substitute or complement, or as a characteristic, or has what we call hypothetical market. So basically, in economic valuation, you don't have to use all of this. Yeah, you can pick any of this. Which one is relevant to your study? Which one is relevant to your case? It depends very much in your interest. But essentially, this for method is part of complete box of economic valuation of ecosystem services. Okay, this is the further explanation of hedonic pricing and travel cost method. I will already explain it in earlier slide. Yeah, the same thing for hedonic pricing. We're talking about housing. We know the price of housing structure is the cost of building, like concrete and wood and everything else, the labor. It's only describing what we call housing structure costs. But in terms of fuel, water quality, regulation, this cannot be captured into the housing component, but can be captured into the market component, into what we call property pricing. So the water quality, access to a view or recreation will be captured in terms of the total value of the housing market. Yeah. So the same thing for like tourism, we try to capture all travel costs, representing the site attribute or the beauty, the freshness of the air or the freshness of the water like that from the visiting area. This is all we call trip generation function for travel cost method. State preference, again, I said earlier, is about asking people how much are they willing to pay to compensate the loss of biodiversity, to compensate the loss of ecosystem services, or to preserve the ecosystem services so we get more benefit from the environment. Now, the second part is about implementing ecosystem services. It's not only good in theoretical, but how this beauty of theoretical ecosystem service be implemented in the real world. In this case, I would explore a bit more on the role of ecosystem services evaluation in Indonesian context. In Indonesian context, the ecosystem services is not only measuring the value of ecosystem services, but we're talking about beyond GDP because our national account, whatever we get from the number from the National Statistics Agency, economic performance is measured in terms of national account, what we call GDP, but it's not telling the whole story about natural capital. If we're selling wood, then we can get GDP in terms of forest product. If we're selling fish, we get GDP for fisheries product. If we're selling energy, we get GDP from the energy sector. But uh, uh, the water that fish live, the coral are not reported in our GDP. So that's why we call beyond GDP, because we have to take into account all services that support provisioning goods that capture into the market that we use for GDP accounting. The second part, we need to have some kind of baseline for ecosystem services, just in case something happening, for example, oil spill in the ocean or damage to ecosystem because of mining or forest fire. Once we know that things happening, then we're gonna ask how much money should we spend to restore that ecosystem services. Then once we know the value, then we can get how much restoration should be made to restore the ecosystem services. Now, in terms of development planning, the ecosystem services in Indonesia has been used for spatial planning, for providing incentive to the region for soil environmental planning, and most importantly, it's also support what we call SDGs goal. So some of these features are not only implemented in Indonesia. I've been talking this talk also in my cross-island state last month in Fiji. Basically, they want to know what are the ecosystem services for? What's in the real world? How to implement ecosystem service in terms of development policy. These are part of the example that Indonesia has been doing so far. And this is one of the example. If government want to decide to reclaim some area in the coastal, for example, then we have to take care ecosystem services because it's been guidelined by some regulation. For example, in government regulation number 46, 2017, it stated about economic instrument, how much compensation should be made once ecosystem services has been degraded. So we need ecosystem services valuation once the government decided to change some landscape from the original or from the baseline, for example, original beach or original forest into built area like port or housing or any other kind of infrastructure that might change the baseline of the ecosystem services. In terms of practical application of ecosystem services in the policymaking area, uh, especially in Indonesia, we have three scales. The worst one with the scale, ecosystem services has been designing payment for ecosystem services, like in the eastern part of Indonesia in Lombok and some area in the western part in Lampung and some area in industrial case like in Banten. So basically, ecosystem evaluation is needed to guideline the policy maker in order to design the scheme for payment for ecosystem service. Who pay who and who pay what. So that's the crucial component of ecosystem service in terms of local scale. It's been applied in case of forests and water resources in some area in the country. The second scale is what we call regional scale. Ecosystem service valuation has been used as integral part of regional development. For example, the case of West Java, in the case of other area in North Sumatra, in Ambon, in eastern part of Indonesia, uh, these provinces have been using ecosystem valuation to compare the original scale or original value of area or sector like forests or fisheries in terms of what happened when they change the landscape or when they transfer the area into built area, then the change in value reflecting the change in ecosystem services. The third scale, what we call national scale, Indonesia just launched what we call ocean ecosystem services and mapping. In Indonesia, they call it Andalusia, which is stand for in English, a national value of ocean services, basically ocean ecosystem services or coastal and ocean value. So in national scale, we have what we call Andalusia 1, Andalusia 2, which basically um, the value of ecosystem services derived from coastal and ocean, which is very important component in terms of valuing or water asset for the national interest. This example of the clear or the real example of implementing economic valuation for ecosystem services at the local scale. So in order to compensate the degradation of watershed area or degradation of forest area, then people in downhill, like the use of uh, household using water from the upper area has to pay for the compensation in the uphill area using what we call bill of water bill they pay for every month. Then they use some component of the payment in order to compensate the degradation of ecosystem in the upper area. So this is a very complex scheme designed to compensate lost ecosystem services in the upstream area by using compensation. This is what we call payment for ecosystem services. All this scheme needs a better ecosystem valuation because ecosystem services valuation because it has to be fair, equitable, and sustainable. Otherwise, you don't have basic logic how to compensate upstream area without having the value of ecosystem services on that area. This is the example of what we call mapping ecosystem services in the West Java is one of the provinces in Indonesia. Our department engaged in designing the ecosystem service mapping. The green area is telling you what's the value of ecosystem services. This is the lower scale area all the way to the upper cluster area in rupiah about 27 trillion per year. So the darker the mark indicate the higher the ecosystem value from this ecosystem services. So in this case, for example, the southern part of West Java have higher ecosystem service value compared to the northern part of Java because this area mostly has been transferred into industrial area. That's why they're losing the value. Why the mark is getting lighter in terms of this coloring mapping. So this is the real example how ecosystem services valuation has been implemented in the policy arena. At the national level, we have what we call mapping all ecosystem services from the ocean, all the way from mangrove, seagrass, and coral reef. This is in Bahasa Indonesia. So mangrove is mangrove, terumbu karang is coral reef, and lamon is seagrass, and the blue one is ocean. So the total ecosystem services derived from the ocean, something about like 4 trillion rupiah. I don't know, convert to US dollar, but it's about 50 to 60,000 US dollar. I have to calculate that in terms of US dollar, but basically it's quite a big amount of money. And we try to differentiate this value in terms of the state of ecosystem services, either in good condition or either in fair condition or either in damaged condition. So the darker the color indicate the ecosystem services is in good condition, the lighter would indicate the ecosystem service in fair or bad condition. So basically the darker the area, the higher the value of ecosystem services. The message from this rose diagram is basically telling the policymaking or the policymaker, look, you have the asset in your hands, you have natural asset in your policy, but we need to know how much that natural asset will be changed along the way. Once you make decision, for example, to transform the coastal area into hotel, into mines, into whatever other purposes, then you need to consider the ecosystems value they have also lost because of this transformation. This picture is telling you about mapping the ecosystem services in terms of coastal area. The lighter the graph indicate the lower the ecosystem services. Okay, the darker is also. That's why the ecosystem service in Eastern Indonesia, for example, in Papua, is quite high because this is a very good mangrove. There's a very good seagrass. They have very good fisheries. That's why the ecosystem services value is much higher compared to other part of Indonesia, like the western and central part. So in terms of linking ecosystem services with other policy measure in Indonesia, yeah, is related to what we call ocean accounting, is related to, to marine spatial planning, it's related to national ocean damage assessment. If something happened to our ocean system, for example, oil spill, then we know how much we should compensate to the oil company in order to restore our ecosystem services. We know we have also marine protected area, but marine protected area, if you're just talking about protection area, if you're talking about conservation area, is meaningless. But if we're talking about protected area in terms of how much value they generated from the ecosystem services, then it could be meaningful because people know that conservation makes sense in terms of economics, the benefit derived from ecosystem service. If we are just taking conservation, don't do this, don't do that, then it doesn't make any sense to society. But if you talk, look, if you conserve the ecosystem services, you get value derived from the biodiversity, you get derived value from services derived from nature, then it makes sense to the society to conserve or to protect ecosystem. Okay. The next question, again, most people asking, okay, we have such and such value of ecosystem. We have millions of dollar or millions of rupiah of ecosystem service. But the value is not in the table. The value is not in your account. The value or the money is not your bank account. The money is not in your drawer, because everything actually just the potential value is not tangible money, but intangible value that you can capture through various mechanisms. For example, let's say we have 10 million US dollar in terms of ecosystem services. How much that 10 million dollar can be captured through economics mechanism? Okay, we can use, like, for example, charging tourism for entering the tourist site. That is what we call travel cost method, using a tariff, using ticket. That's one of the way to capture the value of ecosystem services. From economic activity, then the government get tax revenue. Then the tax revenue will be collected by the tax agency, then will be distributed back to the ecosystem services in terms of, for example, conserving the area, or building better infrastructure. The same thing if water industry need water to get bottled water for their industry, then they have to have good forest area. They have to have a good spring area. Then the industry will produce their product, for example, bottled water. Then bottled water buy or bought by the consumer, and then the consumer have to pay taxes, and the taxes will be collected by the government, and the government again will distribute the taxes to the society. The same thing, for example, with the PES scheme, because there's a supply and demand working in this mechanism by compensating the economic activity in the downstream area, and get revenue and get a benefit from the uphill area, then we can compensate that benefit, or we can compensate the damage from the benefit we're getting from services in the uphill area. So again, these are part of what we call value capture system, because ecosystem services valuation, even though they get numbers in terms of how much dollar they get from ecosystem valuation, but that number is not a real number. Okay, that number is potential number. That number is only value number. Is not sitting in your bank account. It has to be captured through various mechanisms, either through taxation, either through charging, either through a PES scheme, or any other kind of mechanism that transform that value derived from ecosystem services into the real value that people can get from that valuation. Okay. Now the challenge that we're having ecosystem valuation, especially in Indonesia, we have ex ante challenge and ex post challenge. For example, we have regulation number 46/2007, but it's really hard implemented in the area because the problem of rent capture, because we have so many conflicting regulation. That's why sometimes very difficult to implement the government regulation. For the ex post challenge, this valuation actually is supposed to be used for damage assessment valuation. For example, if there is forest fire or oil spill, then the value of ecosystem services could be used as the baseline to calculate the compensation to oil industry, or the forest company that start burning fire. So once we have the ecosystem service valuation, it's much easier for the government to claim compensation in order to restore the ecosystem back to the baseline. Yeah. The second issue is about regarding convergence value. Once you're talking about ecosystem service valuation, there's so many values, from $0 to such and such to high much dollars. It's very difficult to grasp the real convergence value. Since 1990, we have a lot of research in economic valuation. If you search in Google, for example, in uh, publication regarding the economic valuation, the value is quite spread out from the lowest to the highest value. Which one is reliable value? This is quite challenging because they're using different method, they're using different approach, they're using different sample, they're using different statistical calculation. That's why converging valuation is critical in terms of getting value more reliable. So finally, I'm on schedule in 45 minutes. I'll give you 14 minutes to have Q&A. Ecosystem evaluation, again, is not only theoretical, sounds theoretical ground for capturing the services derived from the ecosystem, but in real life, in the policy making, it's played a crucial role, especially Indonesian case, because we have regulation number 46 regarding economic instrument for ecosystem services. Indonesia, for example, has various damage assessment. Compensation is very critical to have a baseline value for contingency just in case something happening to our ecosystem. Once we have ecosystem services valuation, it's very much easy for the government to claim compensation. Ecosystem services valuation can be implemented all the way from the local to national. This is a lesson learned that I think other country would benefit if you want to adopt ecosystem services. It's not only, again, my emphasize is because some people ecosystem services valuation is abstract. Ecosystem values is just theoretical. We don't know how much the value of the forest. We know the value of wood, but the total forest is quite abstract concept. But once we know the ecosystem service valuation, we can inform the policymaker, we can inform decision maker. Look, you have the forest, you have the ocean, the value from the forest, from the ocean, such and such. Once you lost that value, you have to compensate from your budget, which is quite staggering. Then you get what we call opportunity costs. Instead of, spending money to compensate damaged ecosystem, you can use that money, for example, for education and health. But once you have good ecosystem, probably the money that you spend in health getting less and less because you get healthy and healthy. People well-being are much better. People welfare are much better, even though they're not reflected in terms of financial. Because if you're talking well-being, if you're talking about welfare, it's not only about financial, it's also about health, about happiness, about spiritual. All these things can be derived from the ecosystem services. Okay. With that, I concluded my talk. If you have Q&A, if you have question, then I'll be happy to answer in the next 12 minutes. Back to you, Bahrain.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Fauzi. Please send react to Prof. Fauzi for this outstanding material. Thank you so much, sir. In chat box, we have two questions, maybe three questions. For the first question is come from Sherzada. Please, Sherzada, if you want to ask directly to Mr. Prof. Fauzi, time is yours, Sherzada. No, please open the mic first, Sherzada, because you still on mute. Okay.
Assalamualaikum, selamat pagi semuanya, especially Pak Fauzi.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam.
It's my pleasure to have you like a expert person about the ecosystem and that person have background of economics. My first question is very like short and concise. How we can differentiate between the tangible and intangible ecosystem services, and how we can convince a person that who has no background of the ecosystem, especially in the terms of its preservation and its safety. So how we can make it easy for a person that doesn't know about anything about ecosystem and the importance of how we can preserve it. And the second is that if we preserve the ecosystem, what are the easy way for the common people? How can they preserve their ecosystem? To what measurement? Thank you.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
thank
you.
you. Very good question, Shahzada. Yeah, as I was saying earlier, the key critical point of ecosystem service is to make it feasible to the common people, to make it feasible to the policymaker, make it feasible to everyone that nature has value, even though it's not directly consumed. In front of me, I have water. So water is a market component. This is very tangible. The services from the forest, when the ecosystem services from the forest produce spring water, then that's intangible. But once this water transformed into bottled water, they're transacted into the market, I have to buy for this, then this is tangible. The same thing if you say sitting in the forest or sitting in the beach, enjoying your life, and you get inspiration from that moment. Sometimes I call this what we call James Bond effect or Ian Fleming effect, because Ian Fleming, when he wrote the novel about James Bond, they wrote it in the Caribbean area. They're sitting in the beach and they have beautiful bungalow. He's sitting there and he wrote a lot of story about James Bond, and he got billion dollar from that. That's also intangible. Again, same thing if you have talking about climate change, getting flood. It's not the flood is tangible, but the process of why climate is changing, that's intangible. But we can, we can see that cost of climate change in terms of how much money we spend in order to prevent the impact of climate change. That's what we call tangible and intangible thing. Now, the second question is the moral ground for this precautionary measure, because again, first moral goes what we call intergenerational equity. If we are in greedy moral ground, we like re-wrap everything, we harvest everything now, we left nothing for future generation. That's the ground of moral value in terms of economic valuation, meaning we don't care about the next generation. Because sometimes they don't know what's kind of monkey, what kind of orangutan. That's why people willing to spend a lot of money just seeing orangutan, because who knows, in the next future, maybe orangutan is gone. Some species are not uh, in the list anymore. So the moral story is about intergenerational fairness, intergenerational equity. We have to be fair to our generation, not only our current generation enjoying the benefit from the nature, but also future generation. That's why we do care about climate change, because in terms of economic term, climate change is already postponing our consumption shift from the current to the future, just just to make sure that the future generation also enjoy the debate that we are having right now. And again, to make it easier for our people to, understand the economic valuation, is to make it feasible, make a analogical, anecdotal story. Sometimes I use panda story. Panda is just panda is it's just one of the animal in China. Is only China have panda. But why China care so much about panda? If you want to have panda in your country, you have to pay China for $1 million to rent that panda. Okay. Uh, you cannot eat panda. You cannot just panda is just panda. You just watch the panda. They say, oh, panda is cute. But the price of panda, getting rent panda for 1 year is very expensive because Panda play a greater role in terms of ecosystem services, and the value of Panda can be captured by willingness to pay of the people visiting the zoo, for example. So that's kind of transforming the value of ecosystem service into everyday's policy, into everyday's mechanism to make it feasible. There's a lot of example. The one that I was showing you earlier in the first slide is about salmon. Is again one of the example how to make it easier for people to understand the role of ecosystem. In the first slide, I was showing you about the bear and the salmon. People thought the bear is the predator for the salmon. But at the end of the day, it's not the true story, because the bear is the engineer to make the salmon more productive. Yeah. So this kind of things make ecosystem services or conservation is more attractive. The key component, it has to be transformed into perception of the people that preservation, that conservation benefited to human being, either directly through monetary, other financial benefit, or indirectly through other mechanism. For example, you get more healthy. That's indirect benefit for ecosystem service. In Japan and Korea, they have what they call healing forests. So forest is not designed to get wood, but it's designed to get people healthy. That's what we call healing forests. Yeah, that's called this thing happening in the world right now. Okay, probably one more question. All right.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. For the second one from Amin Oria Khail. Maybe Mr. Amin, would you like to direct us to
Yeah,
Prof. Fauzi?
I can read this.
You can read. Okay,
Yeah,
okay, Prof.
it's about the lesson learned. Yeah, this is a very good question. I was asking by the government of Fiji last month to provide lesson learned from Indonesian case of ecosystem evaluation for nation in Pacific Island, because they want to implement the economic system evaluation by the policy making, and they're asking me to provide Indonesian example. Again, this is very critical moment in terms of using ecosystem evaluation for policy development, because it's accelerating. Population is increasing, economic probably up and down, but along the way, natural resource, what we call natural capital, is still part of the component that people benefited from the nature. So Indonesia has been using three pathways. The first one is designing the policy instrument through legislation. Yeah, it has to be legalized. Yeah, otherwise they don't have legal basis to implement. So that's why we have a regulation like government regulation number 46 is the first basic legal standing that government or local government or national government need to use that a legal basis to implement regulation. The second component is using scheme like incentive, disincentive. If, for example, community or local government, make some effort to preserve environment, to preserve conservation area, and the government can provide incentive to the local community. That's the second things that lesson learned we can derive. The third component, what we call damage compensation. If something happening to our ecosystem and then the ecosystem get degraded, then the big question is how much compensation, how much restoration costs that should be compensated to the degraded area. Once we have the ecosystem evaluation, it's much easier for us to write the number. Look, you have degraded our ecosystem. You're setting fire in our forest. You spill the oil in our ocean. You have to pay such and such. How much such and such? How much money we get that number? It is from ecosystem services valuation. That's three keys that we can use as lesson learned from the Indonesian case. Again, the first thing has to be legal basis. The second thing is we have to design incentive and incentive component. And the third thing, you need to have a baseline number of all ecosystem services for contingency in the future. Okay. Okay, Bahrain.
Okay, thank you.
I
Thank you
have
so much, sir.
1 minute to go to the
Yeah.
next meeting. Thank
Yep.
you all. I'm sorry, I have another agendas in Yogyakarta, so hopefully my short presentation will give you some insight into economic valuation of ecosystem services, and you can get some lesson learned from this short talk. With that,
Okay.
I would ask to leave the Zoom meeting. You can still in the room if you want. It's up to Barwin, so I'll leave the meeting now.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. May we get the photo session first before
Okay.
you go to the next agenda? Mas Arif, please take the photo. Everyone who can open the camera, please open. We will take the photo for this session. I will count into 3, 1, 2, and 3. Yes. Thank you so much, Prof. Fauzi, for the insightful presentation, and thank you so much for participant. We appreciate for your engagement and hope everyone can found the lecture, valuable lecture. Thank you for sharing, Prof. Selalu
Thank
sehat,
you.
Prof. Hati-hati di jalan.
Okay. Good morning. Good evening. Good whatever time zone in your area. I'll
Yeah,
see you
yeah, yeah.
again. Yeah. Thank you. I'll leave now.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you so
Oke, Pak.
much. Yeah,
Terima kasih.
we're looking forward to the next agenda in 9:45. So don't forget to fill the attendance at this session. Yeah, the link we have shared in chat box. So don't forget to fill up that attendance links. Okay, thank you so much. Sorry for many in my moderators today. See you again on